Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I am the host of this podcast, and yes, we are your number one podcast for bringing you stories around death, dying, and grief, all the messiness that comes in between, with some amazing people out here changing people's lives one heartbeat at a time. Now, this is a live stream, so I would like to say that if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. One other thing before I bring up my guest. This is for educational purposes only. Now, without further ado, guys, help me welcome my guest, Rick Cram, to the show. Rick, how you doing, brother?
It's so good to be with you, Tony. I've been looking forward to this conversation so much.
Oh, you and I both, man. You and I both. You know, I'm really excited from the last time that we had our conversation. I was like, man, this is going to be freaking amazing. Now, but before we get started, man, introduce yourself to the audience. Tell people who you are, where you're from, and about the work that you do.
Very good. Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Cram. I'm in the Boston, Massachusetts area. Lovely Massachusetts, Cape Cod, one of my favorite places on earth. And I actually met Tony. We were just recently introduced because we share so much together. And maybe together in our time now, you'll see how much we have in common as well. I have had a career of being a communications and leadership expert. And I am now also the phrase I'm using is resilience coach. Some people talk about being a pain coach, but just like a basketball coach teaches people how to play basketball, I teach people and coach people on how to find their own unique resilience when they're facing something really tough, whether it's chronic pain, such as I experienced, or they're grieving, or even if it's excessive stress. If you've got chronic pain, you're experiencing all of the above. My heart goes out to the 20 million people who have and live with chronic pain in the US. My heart goes out to the 57% of you who say that you're carrying so much stress that you feel a sense of paralysis. You feel like, I wish I could get unstuck from this. And my story, very briefly, so that we can get into this conversation, Tony, and interrupt me at any time. But the seventh surgery on my left knee in 2019, it was a partial revision from a total knee replacement from about 20 years before. And the knee's been left in a state of trauma. It all started with a football injury in the last 2 minutes of the very last football game of my senior high school career. And it's been a journey with between 3 surgeries back between those first 2 or 3 years by the age of 20, another 3 surgeries in my late 30s, and then to have this 7th one in 2019. What I experienced are instant blasts of acute pain. And so it's been, and there's no solution yet. I'm never giving up hope, but I live with this every day. And my baseline pain is generally about a dozen to 2 dozen blasts of pain. And the stress of it is that I never know when it's going to come next. One of the reasons why I was thrilled to meet Tony and really applaud him for what he's doing and applaud you for being here is because I believe in the power, the healthiness of grieving. And I do good grief because I basically deal with so much agony every day. Grieving is one of the best ways, the healthiest ways I can continue to grow my own unique resilience.
Now, which leads me to my first question, man. First, I want to say thank you for the work that you do. And yes, hopefully they do come up with something to help you out with what you're going through. No one should have to go through life in that much pain, but you found a way to turn it around and do so much more with it, right? Just do the work that you do. So now you okay?
There's one right there.
Yeah, he said they come at the least expected moments, unexpected moments.
This gives me a chance to say, my friend, that pain happens in the moment, especially like this. But resilience also happens in the moment. And when I first created the methodology for navigating really challenging things in life, it's called Plan to Be Your Best as You Navigate Pain. I was asked to create it 12 years ago by one of my corporate clients who said we need a leadership conference on how to give new strategies and skills for our leaders to navigate something they've never experienced before, challenges that they needed to know. How do we lead ourselves and others through this? So, and through the years, I've strengthened it to a point where I've gotten to the point where I now know what I need to do to live with this if I never actually find a solution for it. I've been seeing doctors recently regarding everything from knee fusions to amputation. And I'm not likely to go that route, but I'm looking at all possible and pretty extreme options. But I know through developing Plan to Be Your Best as you navigate pain and doing the hard work that I know what I need to do mentally and emotionally to be resilient and thrive with this, even with the pain, for the rest of my life if I need to.
We're gonna pray that that does not happen. But yeah, I do love your outlook on it and everything, and we'll dive deeper into that because there's a lot to talk about in that area right there. Let's talk about your journey, though. Let's talk about who were you before all of this happened, right? Because we talked about it. You got an amazing background, and you've done some amazing things up until your injury, and so let's talk about that. But you also experienced a very profound loss as well.
Great question, because that's so much part of the journey. The idea of my story isn't just about the pain, although there's a bigger story. The bigger story is what I've learned through nearly 50 years of living with all this and going through the trauma from the first 3 surgeries, the trauma from the second set of 3, and so forth, even the trauma that I'm living now. But I've got a background of being someone who likes to support and encourage other people. That's part of my upbringing, part of my faith, and so I'm a natural communicator and encourager. And the idea of one way that I've responded to this, for example, I came out of the years when I had those few years when I was going through surgeries 4, 5, and 6. I just felt compelled to, all right, I've experienced something, and I'm now both figuratively and literally back on my feet. I want to help others. So I became a trained caregiver through the Stephen ministry, which is in 13,000 churches now. And it's a listening ministry, a lay leaders ministry. And then with all the trouble that I've had, and actually, so I'm catching myself right here, Tony. I've become a lion of intentionality with my words. That's the first time I've actually said the trouble that I've had for the past several years, these past 5 years, because I don't, I'm so, I nerd out on words. I'm so careful regarding the words so I don't create certain patterns of thought that are negative. I don't refer to the pain being bad. So once in a while I'll say, this is a nightmare, but I quickly squelch it because I believe in creating healthy patterns of thought to squelch any negative patterns of thought. And believe me, I have them. I'm human. It's normal human response to whether it's emotional pain, mental pain, or physical pain. So I've become someone who actually, as a teenager, I thought I'm never going to plan. I don't need a plan for anything. And then I grew up and saw in business the value of planning. And I have found that the more years I've experienced in transitioning my journey of pain into a journey of resilience, that planning in my own personal way, and you might do it in your own individual, unique way, is probably one of the most powerful ways of navigating this, thinking in terms of what I can control when so much seems out of control. I'll pause there. Tony, I know it might not seem like it, but I'm more of a listener than a talker. So
No, most definitely. So I want to go back because I want to talk about. I want you to talk about your corporate experience, right? Because you've you've been in the magazine for industry for quite some time. Let's talk about that. How was that?
It was actually wonderful. I love I love the written word. I love the way that a magazine can bring through the words and the imagery. It's a completely different kind of reading experience than a book, for example. Um, the people that I worked with were fantastic. The idea of a magazine being a conduit between, and sort of a bridge, if you will, between a group of people who want to share ideas, information, and even in an engaging and entertaining way with an audience of readers. And certainly it's a business. It involves the advertisers. It creates an opportunity for companies to connect with readers too. But I loved it. I actually, I'm not sure if I shared this with you, Tony, but after I lost Warren, the day he was born back in '87, I thought I'd love to create a magazine called Tides, Riding the Waves of Change. I never actually got around to it, but I wanted to share and start a magazine to bring to life um, what you're doing and how you're leading and helping people go through their own grieving journey. And but it was sort of like a precursor to what I've done now in the past several years, developing Plan to Be Your Best as you navigate pain, becoming a caregiver, and now a resilience coach. Because I don't want to, back then I could tell, and even more so now, I don't want to waste the pain. I don't want to waste what I've learned about grieving. I don't want to waste what I've learned about what it takes to not only find my own, but help other people find their own unique way of being resilient and thriving even with the pain.
So now you mentioned something. I want to talk about it, right? Because we share a common loss, which is child loss. And you mentioned briefly about Warren. Can you talk about him a little bit, like up until the loss and everything?
So, up until the loss, it was weeks and weeks, months, of course, of expectation, of immediate love, and all the things to look forward to. And then there were signs of challenges going into having him delivered, and there was worries and stress. But the days and moments where I would put my mouth against his mother's stomach, the tummy there, and whisper, talk to Warren. There was a relationship already fully started, instantly started, and the growth of that relationship was ongoing. And I'll say, in some ways, I still have a relationship with him, even though the only time I got to hold him was when he was being unplugged and from the equipment and passing away. There's something about your intro, Tony, that struck me. The moment that the doctors raced him out of the delivery room was like your intro. It was an explosive, sudden moment. I think there was a part of your intro where there's lightning hitting one of the numbers.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a moment of feeling as though lightning, horrible, awful lightning is hitting at me. And then for the doctor to come in and to tell us hours later, I've never paced so much in my life. I think it was about 3 hours. We simply didn't know anything. And when he came in and shared the sad news, there was another bolt of lightning. And grief, I've found the grieving was immediate. The grieving actually started when the doctors rushed him out of the operating room. Or grieving all of a sudden, the loss of control, the loss of hope, was already unfolding. There's so many things that are lost. So we lost in losing him all of the future moments that we had anticipated, expected, looked forward to. And I'm feeling it, man. I'm feeling it.
Take your time, right? Because we've all been there. You and I talked about this, and I tell you, man, they don't have any. There's no words for it, right? They have words for all different types of losses, but child loss, and it's a very, very profound loss. And those I know women who have lost their children. I know men who have lost their children as well. And we all just sit around and go, no one can, no, nothing prepares you for it, nothing
Right.
at all, right? And when it does happen, it's such a there's a sense of guilt that comes along with it, right? There's a sense of shame that comes along with it because the expectation that we have leading up to because we're not expecting to outlive our children, and that was one of the hardest truths I had to learn as I went, that we're not exempt from it. That was the first thing I had to accept. And it took me a long time to accept that because I used to just brother, I used to watch people, man, and think to myself like, wow, you get to have your kid.
Yeah.
And I gotta lose mine. Like why? I was constantly why what did I do? All of these things, like the future that I had, um, things like that. It's had in my head kind of went out the window, and I had to develop a whole new mindset, right? The whole resilience thing. And I would tell you, I would have to say that in the beginning, during the process after that loss, I thought I was doing good, but I couldn't tell you what I did. I couldn't tell you not one thing that I did, right? And talking about the doctors, I remember, I remember when when Jake was in the hospital and they were doing the procedure, the doctor came out just minutes before. Oh, everything's going good. Everything's going good. We're about to start the second half of the procedure, and the second half of the procedure started, and it wasn't so good anymore.
Yeah.
What is going on? Like they had the blue lights going on, and I was sitting there. I was looking. I was like, I'm looking at his mother. Like, what is going on here? Like, I'm very, I'm not thinking the worst. I'm like, okay, what is going on? But then when I seen all the doctors and the nurses running into the room, and I
Mm.
still remember to this day the words, "Somebody go get his parents."
Oh.
Right,
Yeah.
and that was the words that keep playing over and over, even to this day. It's a part of the process that I go through. You know, somebody go get his parents. We're losing them. I remember walking into the room as all the nurses and the doctors was walking out, and he had just taken his last breath. And
Oh.
so those images will still stick with you. And I remember turning around. I'm looking at that doctor, and the doctor hurried up and ran. And I looked around. I was like, I'm about to tear this floor up. Somebody better come and do something.
Yeah.
And I realized that the reality of it was, after 2 hours of laying there, was it's not coming back.
Yeah.
You know, and then the thought was, what am I supposed to do now?
Right.
What am I supposed to do? I got to call my mom. I got to tell her that her grandson just passed away, but I got to call his sisters and tell them that their baby brother just passed away. And I tell you, man, like that deep, that deep heartache. If I could explain it to people
Yeah.
and put it into words, I mean, if I can just explain it to people, I would just put a whole bunch of squiggly lines on the paper and go, "That's what it's like."
Yes. Yes.
That's I can't really explain it. It doesn't go anywhere.
And
Even to
that
this, yeah. And it's
that
9
was
years. 9 years Monday. We just celebrated his ninth. I just celebrated his ninth anniversary,
yeah.
and that ache is there. It's there. It's constantly there, and so people constantly look at me. Do you ever find that people look at you from time to time and go, "What's going on with Rick?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is
Mm-hmm.
Rick okay?" And you want so bad to tell them, no, I'm not okay,
Right.
but you don't know how.
Right. Right.
Right.
Man, that's so true. There's so many things you're saying, Tony, that are really powerful. And let me just say again, I'm so sorry, and I forever will be, as your brother, a holder of hope for you in your grieving. A holder of hope for you. That will never end. Um, there's a couple of things you mentioned not being prepared, and are any of us really prepared? One of the things that I reflect on in the book about my knee, I wasn't prepared for the severity of the injury nor the first three surgeries. After the first surgery, my kneecap doubled in size because I was tracking back and forth across the base of the femur. And the third surgery was removing all the meniscus, and they brought the kneecap. They have to brought it, put it. I'm trying to find the words back to normal size. They took double the size of the kneecap and brought it back down and removed half of it. I wasn't prepared for all that. But I found and you mentioned the word process as well, that one of the things that I've learned is that it's never too late to become able. And that's part of the process. And that's part of the journey as well. That can be its own journey of its own. You know how you have something so profoundly sad and tragic like that, it shakes the sense of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who've come to me and said, I don't know who I am anymore and I don't know what to do. A lot of people come to me and say exactly what you said. What do I do next? Or how do I get through this? And that's part of the journey. And part of the book is for people in physical pain as well as for grieving and stress. And I hope to have the manuscript done this summer. It's taking longer than I wanted to get this done, but I lay out the process that it helps facilitate it. I wish there was a magic wand for you. I wish there was a magic wand for everyone, but it's hard. And the idea, it changes us. It changes us.
Yeah.
If I may ask you.
Yeah, please.
What have you learned about yourself?
I learned that I am possible. And what I mean by that, because when you compile everything that you go through in your life, and you can reflect on the different versions that you've had to become throughout the journey of your life, right? You kind of sit back and you think to yourself, because in the beginning I just go, man, I can't believe I've gone through all of this and I actually survived all of these different things. Now, on the other side of it, when everything began to make sense to me, I began to look at it, but not the things that I went through. I started to think about the people that I met along the way,
Mm-hmm.
right? The times when I was homeless and things like that. The people I met when I was homeless, the people who really took me in and showed me kindness. If they're listening right now, Kelly and Janelle Visick, their family, thank you so much, man. 5 years, they took me in and treated me like family. I mean, it was a good time, and their kids became my god kids, and I've met so many other people along the way. Like I have a total of 76 god kids across the world right now, and I still see them. Right, I've watched them grow up since they were children. Most of them are grown in their 20s and 30s now, right? And they have kids of their own, right? And they still talk, "Hey, Tony, how you doing?" I still see the kids, man. Even in the games, right? People think about the negative aspects of the games, and and I tell people I've lost everyone. I've lost over 400 plus friends in the games. I've watched them all die, right? And it wasn't the fact that I watched them die. It was the fact that I got to experience who they were, right? And they weren't bad or anything like that. We made bad choices, but man, they had dreams just like everybody else. They wanted the nice house with a decent family. They didn't want to be gangbangers for the rest of their life, man. It was just the way that it was, and and so we made the choice to say this is the life that we live now, right?
Mhm.
Um, the many people, even when I was an alcoholic, man, the many people I met during during my phase of being an alcoholic, it wasn't the fact that I was an alcoholic; it was the people. I got to experience who they were when they weren't drinking and things like that. And they got this. I got to see their heart and things like that. So I saw the other side of it, and so that's what I mean. You know, you experience you experience these people throughout this process, and the process. Once you figure out what it is,
Mhm.
fall in love with it. As hard as it may seem, fall in love with the process
Mhm.
because you are in there and you're constantly growing. And as you begin to shed your old self, welcome your new self. This
Yeah.
is going to happen. This is going to happen 1,000 to 1,000,000 times throughout your lifetime, depending
Mhm.
on how you grow,
Right.
right? But you have to actually want the growth. You have to want it, right? And there's things that's going to still tingle around. There's things that that still I'm working on and things like that, and I'm
Mhm.
working on it. And so now I say my biggest mission throughout my grief journey is to develop a uncanny sense of unconditional love for people,
Yeah.
and that entails everything: the respect, the loyalty, the love without expectations. To be able to give myself totally and fully to another individual, and just say, "Take what you need from me, and I don't want anything in return." Right? To
There's
be
so
a
much.
servant
Yeah. Yeah.
to people. I told somebody, I said, my biggest goal now, I have two biggest goals throughout my journey. One, I want to become God's friend. I want to be his friend, you know, not just, but I want to be his friend because, and that's why I want to treat people the way that I do. Because I go, if I had $10,000 and I went to someone and gave them that $10,000 and said, what would this do to change your life? What would God say to a person like that? Just, you know, and so, and then the other side of it is whatever chart that is that is laid out for me, I want to outwork it. I want to outwork it. So whenever I leave, whenever my life is over and I transition out of this place and I go home, I want to stand in front of God and I want him to say, all of these papers that's on the ground, these are the things that I had to write as you was doing them. I did, like, I had you here, but all of this right here, I just lost count of all the stuff that you were doing. So when people see the things that I do, just know that I challenge myself on a day-to-day basis to put things out into the world that's that helps people, right? And I want to encourage other people um to just think outside the box.
Yeah.
I want to encourage people to do better than me because I'm just a Tony, right? I'm a poor boy from Virginia that got here just just by doing the things I've gone through, and I just decided, as you said, to be resilient and take that path and allow it to change me, and I submitted to it, right? And then I became obedient to this thing called grief. And it was
Yeah.
the best thing that I ever did. And as a man, it's hard to do to say that I became obedient to something, that I surrendered to the process. But look at what it did.
Right.
Got a
Right.
comment over here. My friend Golden Willow, she says, in her experience, dear one, growing while being an empathetic person, interpersonal relationships are compromised. It can be, yes, but yes, you're right. In a lot of ways, they can be. In some ways, they can grow together as well. So there's always the multitude of sides that come along with that, depending on your experience as you go through it. But sure, what are your thoughts on it, Rick? What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, I couldn't hear the. Would you read the comment again, please?
Yeah, they say in their experience, growing while being an empathetic person, interpersonal relationships are compromised.
Well, that's a very common thing, and part of the challenge of grieving, of being in pain, whatever the form of pain might be, especially when it's acute, it is going to have some effect on each of the 8 dimensions of our lives: our mental life, our emotional life, our spiritual life, including our social life. That is human. It's also wrought with challenges, ranging from how other people respond to someone else in pain. It might be a factor of how they themselves would process their own grieving. There are a number of friends that I have that have lost children, and I've had some fascinating conversations with them in terms of the part of their journey was how did they, as a married couple, how did they work through their grief. One really good friend of mine was just saying last year the idea of how they gave themselves permission and supported each other in their own grief journey. A lot of a lot of couples who lose young children in particular, or children at any age, the rate of divorce is very high, much higher than the average, and it's a reflection of the difficulties when pain enters any set of relationships. It can affect friendships, it can affect family, it can affect loved ones. And so one of the things that there was a word I was thinking of as I was listening to you, Tony, the word grace came to mind. The grace for yourself, grace for others. Um, Love is expressed through grace in many different ways. And so, on one hand, I really appreciate that comment. I appreciate all of your comments, Tony. There are a few things that I'd like to share with you, and I think it's important and healthy, just as you were describing the hard work that you've done and that I do, and all of us who are grieving or in pain in one form or another. It is hard work. It's very hard work, but it is good work. And part of one of the things that makes it good is, like our friend who shared that comment, is it was expressed, getting it out,
Yes.
and yes, seeing what other people have to say. It,
Yeah.
our experiences are all going to be very, very unique, for many different reasons. If I may, there are three. If I can remember them all, Tony, there were 3 words that you used that I'd like to uh, acknowledge and affirm 2 of them, and maybe offer a slight word of encouragement from this word nerd, this communicator. You talked about it being an experience, and that's so healthy. I caught myself the idea of a month away from my 6th knee operation, and I knew it meant I'd never run again. I'd never play tennis again. There's a lot of things I knew I was still already grieving in advance. And I caught myself, I was at my desk and I said, this is one of the worst things that's ever happened to me. And I caught it and right away said, no, no, this is one of the best things that I'm going to experience. It was a 180-degree turn that meant it was a sea change. It was a complete flip in my perspective, and it made a difference going through with the surgery and all that went with it. Um, it was more of that level of emotional maturity, that objectivity. Some people call it, psychologists will call it detachment. I don't I don't like that term. I prefer attached detachment, but being more objective to say, this is what I'm going, this is what I'm experiencing, and therefore I'm not labeling it with something like this. This is happening to me. It's normal, human, and there's no shame in thinking that. But it's where we go from there that makes a difference. Very briefly, you mentioned you want to be a friend of God's. And as I was listening to it, I was thinking if I jumped in, if anything, I would have said right away, you are a friend of God.
I think I think when I say that, it's like when you've lost everyone, things like that, this world can become a very big place. It doesn't change; it just becomes less people in it that you know. And when I say that, it's like I want to. I can imagine being on the basketball court with God, and what I'm saying, and giving him high five when he shoots a hoop or something like that, or talking trash with them. You know what I'm saying, and things like that. So that's what I mean. Like I would like being his friend and things like that. Someone
Yeah.
who I can turn to give me the truth.
Yeah.
When even when it's hard.
Well,
Even when it's hard,
that's
right?
powerful.
Yeah, don't sugarcoat it for me. Don't
Right.
if I'm out here messing up, I want you to come and tell me that I'm messing up. If I wronged you in any way, and or that you feel that I wronged you in any way, I want you to come to me. So give me the opportunity to be able to apologize to you, and that's what I mean. Right,
Yeah.
a true friend. I want to be a true friend to God. I want to be able to go to God too and go, look, man, that wasn't okay.
Yeah.
That wasn't okay, right? I want to be able to have that conversation with him, right? On that level. I want to be honest, raw, uncut, and not sugarcoated. So when it comes, that's what I mean by I want to be God's friend. I want you
And
to
I
let
get
me.
it.
I want you to let me know. I want and when I'm in my hardest moments and I'm not feeling okay. I don't want you to say to me, you know what I'm saying, a man up. I want you to sit there with me and say, dude, it's okay. I'm gonna sit here with you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because we want that out of other people, and
Right.
most people don't know how to do that. But I know that if I'm God's friend, I know He'll sit with me, right? I don't have to be alone in my hardest moments,
Right.
right? You know what I'm saying? And what He gives to me, I can give to other people.
You remind me of, and I get it. I knew and I know that's what you mean. I
Yeah,
like
but I
to,
know there's some people that may not understand that, but that's what I mean. Like I want my relationship to be, I want my relationship to be true. I want to be a true friend. I want to be able to look at and go, yeah, man, that was pretty cool.
did you ever see that? I think he was winning an award, Matthew McConaughey, and he talked about having some things to chase, and he referred
Yeah,
to chasing his future self. Um, in our relationship with God, we want it both in the moment, but we're pursuing it. And isn't any relationship going to be the best it can if we pursue the relationship?
yes, yes, and that's what. So
Yeah.
when we talk about all of these different things, and we compile everything that we just talked about, right? We talk about grace and forgiveness. um, Most of it has to come from yourself.
Right.
When you invite other people in, you're taking a chance that they may not be a good fit for you. You are, and sometimes we have to distinguish between the emotion, reaction, and response of how those things come. Because some people come into your life at your most vulnerable moments, and they may take advantage of you. These things are going to happen. I would
Right.
be a lie if I told you that it's never happened to me. Right? It happened to me several times over and over and over again. But the thing is that this is where forgiveness comes in, because I can forgive them for what they've done to me because it was a blessing to me. Thank you. Thank you for what you did to me. Thank you for making me stronger to be able to do what I needed to do. Right? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because had you not done this, I would not I would not be who I am today. I wouldn't have the knowledge. So I appreciate the knowledge that I gained from you, that I was able to turn into wisdom, right? And to be able to give that back to someone else and step into a place of deep empathetic grief with others and go, I will take your pain from you if you allow it, right? I don't want you to carry this pain. I know what it feels like. I will empty myself out so you can give it to me, because I don't want you to have to struggle the way that I did, right? So there's the blessing inside of all of that, right? Understanding all of that. You compile all of that. And then the unconditional love that I'm working on. And the reason why I say that is because we have to learn to love each other in our ugliness, in the ugliness of life, especially when people are not the best people. I want to love you anyway, right? I don't want nothing from you because, for one, that may be what you need. That may be what you need.
One one of the one of the reasons why I was so looking forward to meeting you was I immediately saw your strength of character. And in our first conversation the other day, and what we're talking about here is, in everything that we're sharing, we are sharing glimpses of the depths of our characters. And you mentioned a key word, wisdom. As you notice, I hone in on certain words.
Mhm.
Um, there's so much. There's wisdom that you've gained through the growth of your character, um, and I believe that's one half of courage. I believe courage is a combination of conviction and wisdom. And when you've got that conviction, a strength and depth of ideas and feelings, with wisdom, with truths, with reality, with knowing how to say yes to the process of grieving, for example, that when you put the two together, conviction and wisdom, that's the those are the words of weapons for courage. And one of the ways I found that it works with navigating the physical pain is that if conviction wanes or weakens, it's exhausted, the wisdom can make up for it. And likewise, if the strength and the wisdom weakens, the strength of conviction can make up for it. And that's part of that depth of intentionality that I found is so important to find my unique resilience. Um, there's one other thought. I'll pause there, but I'll come back to. I'll come
So
back to it.
I was putting the link up to the magazine for people who haven't gotten it yet.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, good. You know, these
stand out as
stories.
something.
The one of the things that's impressive about your magazine, Tony, it's the storytelling. We learn from about others, and we learn about ourselves when we experience stories, whether we hear them or we read them. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of it, right? And I appreciate the people who are just sitting back listening to the conversation right now. And again, if you guys have any questions or comments, Father, myself, or Rick, please put them in the comments section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. And for everybody who's tuning in, thank you guys for tuning in. It means a lot. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying it. So Rick, let's dive into this word resilience, right? Because I developed a program called Resilience. I think I sent it over to you, and things like that. Resilience, in your own words, what does that word mean to you?
Resilience is more than just bouncing back. If you look at the definition of it, it's bouncing back from anything difficult, anything challenging. It might be from any kind of setback, a moment of pain. It's bouncing back from that. It might be the processing of anything challenging, bouncing back. But I believe it's more than that. I believe when resilience is complete, it's taking what is challenging and bringing it forward, bouncing back and bringing it forward in a way that makes you stronger. Actually, I want to stop myself right there. It's not going to make you stronger. It's how you experience it that makes you stronger. And so it's not just bouncing back, it's how you move forward with it and from it. I took with me, for example, the loss of Warren. I'm never going to let that go. I don't want to. In a way, the blast of pain I had at the beginning of our conversation, I bounced back from it, and I had a lot of practice at this. I just stayed focused on you, Tony. But I believe when we're at our best, we take it with us. We don't fight it. Now, I've done plenty of fighting. There was years when I know what it's like to be angry, in pain and angry. But I'd say for the most part, for the past, since 2019, with all this pain and all the setbacks in terms of the diagnoses and so forth, I'm taking it forward because here's how I view it. I may not be able to describe the pain to you. I can tell you it feels like a hammer hitting my kneecap. I can feel, sometimes it feels like I'm feeling the incision from the 13th incision, feel it cutting open about 14 inches long. It feels like an ice pick going in the right side of my knee, the top of the tibia. I can tell you all those things, but I can't really tell you what it's like to feel pain every day, the kind that they'd give you morphine for. But I can tell you all about my resilience. I have no lack of words for my resilience. And I say that because I want to celebrate it. I want to celebrate how I come back from each blast of pain. I was sitting over at the pool with some of my neighbors last summer and had a series of blasts of pain that were all 10 out of 10 on the pain scale. Person next to me picked up her phone and started dialing 911. And I celebrated my being able to say, I'm bouncing back from that. I'm being resilient from that. No need to call 911. And I take pride in that. The more I am intentional about creating these new patterns of celebrating each act of resilience, the stronger I'm going to be at repeating that new pattern. And I think true resilience is not just a singular act. It's part of establishing patterns. This is one of the ways in which the 3 steps of resilience comes in. You tune in. The first step is tune in. Like there was a time I had a series of about 5 blasts of lightning going through the knee. I'm in the dentist chair. Both the dentist and the dental hygienist start screaming. And I used the 3 steps of resilience to turn the all around. I tune in. That's the first step. What do I need? What do they need? And I pick something that I know is then when I go to the plan step, the second step, what can I count on? What have I done in the past that I can count on to win back my focus that pain has taken away, to win back the energy that pain has taken away, and then be my best and follow through on something that I've chosen. And for example, in that moment, I chose to care for the dentist and the dental hygienist. And it completely changed my moment from agony to helping them join me in moving forward. That's what my resilience looked like in that moment. There are times when I'll break down and cry because that's what I needed. It's good grief. Those tears, when I do, it lowers the cortisol, stress hormone. it actually lowers the very pain that I'm feeling. And there are about 25 or more things. Actually, I just added something new, a certain kind of I am statements and breathing exercise that I just brought two things together. It's part of my resilience toolkit. More than 24 things are my go-to items. Sometimes it's lifting weights for 90 seconds. Completely turns a moment around. But and you use the word process again, the idea that it's all a matter of process. I may never see 85%, 90% pain-free again. But I've got a plan. I know the processes of thought, processes of choosing emotions, and processes of choosing actions. Everything from prayer to expressing everything. That's what resilience, and I'll say thriving, looks like to me. I'll share one thought and then pause, Tony, to get your thoughts. But there was a time several years ago I had been diagnosed with there's nothing we can do, which is one of the hardest things to hear, especially when you're in intense physical pain. I heard myself say, and I didn't say it to anyone else for a year because it upset me to hear myself say it. But I said, in every breath, I'm fighting to survive and I'm fighting to thrive. And I found that led to understanding what I need to do, everything from expressing it to putting a plan in place for how to do both. Self-encouragement, encouragement of others, caring for others. Part of the reason why I'm now a resilience coach is that the encouragement and how I encourage and equip people to be their best, it flows right back to me. So actually, here's a question for you, my friend. And to some extent, I'm talking about energy. The topic of energy, how it's spent, how it's created, how it's preserved, how it's protected. Energy, I think, is an integral human part of navigating resilience and navigating the process of grieving.
The word intentional, right? So when we talk about navigating grief and being resilient, I think most of it is that you have to be intentional about your thoughts, your actions, and in the pursuit of it as well, right? And honestly, this is where I'm gonna have to push back on you, my friend. There's no getting through the process. There's no getting. You're going to have to go through the process, but you can't just get through the process. That's one thing where a lot of people, may find themselves caught. See, what we have a bad tendency of doing is that sometimes we get to a certain place and we forget where we came from, and how we got there. So when we're talking to people that are grieving, we have to understand that there's no getting through the process. You will have to go through the process, but there's no getting through it. You're going to have to develop. You're going to grow. That's part of it, right? You know what I'm saying? So I want to be real careful when we're doing that, because that could push people back so far and can do so much damage to people. And we're not in the business of doing damage to people. We're in the business of helping them get to where they need to be, and embrace the process that they have to go through. It's going to be for everything.
I appreciate that, Tony, and that's so important. What I'm referring to is the 3-step process.
No, I wasn't talking about that. I was there was a comment that came up on Instagram, and that's what I was just talking about that. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but I just want to make sure that people understand, like, we have to be careful when we try to push people through a process, because we can do a lot of damage to them, because we rush them. But yeah, your three steps is just exactly what it is. Those are three great, awesome steps that people can take. Being intentional, right? You know, that's part of it, right? You know what I'm saying? And
and
being
it,
intentional with it.
and it never ends.
Yeah, it never ends. So you will grow through it. You will shed old pieces of yourself that no longer suits you as you begin to grow, and you become this pretty awesome version of yourself,
Yeah,
right? And that version of yourself is going to require you to go to another level. The more you grow within this and you're intentional about your growth, the more you're going to share, the more you're going to learn. Like part of it that you go through is understanding that knowledge is the key and wisdom is power, right? In order to have one, you're going to have to go through some things because those things are going to be the key components into you developing skills. Not everything that we teach a person is going to be beneficial for them. We have universal tools that you can take and use anytime that you want to, but what you add to it is personalized to what you need,
yeah,
right? And
exactly.
and you may do something and think to yourself like, "Wow, that didn't work." It
Right.
just didn't work at that moment. Put it back in your tool belt, right? Now take another step. Let's in this moment ask yourself, what are you feeling, right? Now,
Right.
once you can articulate that honestly, now ask yourself, what do you need? And you will find that you have something that you've already developed that's going to be a benefit to you. At least that is what I have experienced in my grieving process.
Me too. And the if you think, and I appreciate that friend that shared that comment, and it's sometimes I believe it's actually good to let's work through some of these issues.
Right.
Let's
Yes, yes.
let's let's do some good pushing. That's part of the work. Um, the Thinking about the different stages of grief. I don't. Here's my thought. I still grieve Warren. I experienced in the past year from the physical pain. The, there's the loss of comfort. There's the loss of knowing what am I going to do next to see if I can find. You know, virtually everyone is saying even an amputation won't work. There's a loss of there's a loss of energy at times. There's a loss of a sense of faith in certain moments. Um, there's loss of so many people who I'm not able to see. Um, and acceptance has been very, very challenging for me in these years. Uh, it's almost as if the stages, I almost wish there's a different word for the stages of grief, because it can be a never ending process.
Right.
Now, I heard, you know,
So I do have a word for it, right? When we talk about, I like to call them pillars of grief. And the reason why I call them that is because once you understand what the stages of grief were actually designed for, you can begin to separate them, right? And once you begin to go through the grieving process, you will realize that there's more to it than just the five stages. They're just beginning points or points that you can add to. And I've seen some people get up to 30 to 47 other parts of those stages of grief, right? And so when we think about it, it's what is your experience with it, right? But be truly, truly honest with yourself. Be truly honest with yourself. It's not just anger. There's sorrow, there's depression, there's anxiety, right? There's rage, there's creativity, right? There's so many different things that you can add to it. So ask yourself as you're going through these five stages, what what does it mean to you,
right,
and what can you add to it to make those five pillars of grief make
right,
more have more meaning to you,
right,
right? And then from there, you find that they will hopscotch. they were hopscotch, and then you'll add things to it, you'll take things away from it. So when it was developed, I do believe that it was developed and with the idea of to add to,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? Like don't let this be don't let this be the end all to it. Like add to it. You know what I'm saying? Truly, truly be intentional with your grief. And as you say, after a while, it becomes good grief, right? Not everybody's going to experience it as that way or perceive it as that way, right? But for those of us that do the work, we look at it and we go, yeah, that's good grief right there. That's that good stuff, right? Because you find yourself smiling one day. You'll find yourself telling jokes. I find myself doing that all the
Mhm.
time, right? But I also find myself, just like this past weekend, it was Father's Day, right? So I going through that, and then it was my mom's birthday. My son passed the day after.
Mhm.
So there's a triple whammy that I go through, but I didn't sit around and go, oh, was no, I got up and I said, you know what? Not this time. Not this time. This time, I'm going to say thank you, Mom, for the life that you've given me and happy birthday. And I'm going to say thank you, my son, for giving me the gift of being a father. So I'm going to celebrate this Father's Day. And when his anniversary came around, I said, you know what? You may not be here with me. I appreciate the time that you gave me. Now go and dance in the scars, dance in the sky, my friend, my son, because you deserve it. And I'll see you. I may not see you anytime soon, but when I do see you, I know I want to hear all about it. I want to hear all about it. But today, I'm going to celebrate your life because you lived a really good life. And if you would have saw your tribute and the hundred and some odd friends that you had come around from around the city to come and just say, say how much they cared about you, then you would understand why I celebrate your life today. As painful as it has been,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
celebrate with joy. So don't let my tears fool you. I had the time of my life. I had some pretty cool parents, you know. I had a mom and dad and stuff like that. So Father's Day, I may not physically be able to celebrate with you, or maybe not even understand it to the totality of someone who is a father right now, of what they're going through. But man, I can enjoy it with them and say, man, high five to you, brother. You know what I'm saying? Good job. Good job.
Right.
Here's to the next one.
Yes.
Here's to the next one. And for me, you're right. I get to celebrate the 8 years that I had because they wasn't bad. I learned so much about being a father and being a man that's priceless. And I didn't see the blessing in it until I learned to let go of what was holding me back. And once I did that, the chains broke. Now here we are. Now I'm slowly evolving into who I'm supposed to be for this next section of the journey of
Right.
grief, right? And so I think we all are. I think this is, and I can't speak for everyone, but I think that this journey is continuous. Um, and you have to be intentional at wanting to see what the next step is.
Right. We're
That's just,
all, yeah,
yeah,
we're all a work in progress. It'll never end until we leave this earth, this life. It'll never
exactly,
end.
exactly.
Um, Two thoughts. One, you remind me of, here we are. We just lost Warren, and I think before my wife had left the hospital a day or two later, the doctor came and looked me in the eye and said, he lived a good life. Kind of shocked me. But I thought, what a wonderful event! It took a little while, but there was truth to that. For the months that he was in the womb, he lived a good life. And but that really struck me. Also remind me of a friend of mine who talked about how here maybe about 30 years afterwards, after losing her 7-year-old daughter, she gave a talk, and she began the talk with saying, "I am a grieving mother." All these years later, these decades later, and she starts with an "I am" statement. It is, we're all a work in progress. It's a testament to how it shapes our identity and our "I am" statements.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. The I am is important, but most important is the words that come after that, right?
yeah, right,
Um, and so once you change that, your mindset changes and the way that you see everything changes as well.
right,
So you can go through, look, whatever you need to do in the beginning stages is what you need to do.
right,
But be intentional about changing the way that you speak to yourself. That's very, very important. If you go around and say that I'm a grieving mother or I am broken, you would tend to take on those characteristics,
right,
right? But when you can say, you know, I am a human being, you begin to go back to being a human being. You understand, you can accept life on a different level. And you say, I am resilient to this.
right,
You begin to develop certain skills, certain traits that help you become resilient to it. But then when you're honest with yourself, it's like, and you say, I am hurt, it changes the dynamic and the path that you go on. You're no longer acting as if you're broken. You're not a thing. You're a human being. Be honest with yourself. You are hurt. Your mind would begin to say, oh, shoot, I need to find paths of healing. It's just like if you cut your arm or something. You say, oh my God, I'm hurt. You go seek a band-aid, right? You will have to change the ending stages, the ending statement that comes after that I am, because you are that I am. So when you get to a healthy place in your life, speak words that embody love, life, encouragement, and knowledge. Encourage yourself before
right.
anyone else does it. Encourage yourself to be a better version of yourself as you begin to shed the last version of yourself to become the new version of yourself, right? And see what that looks like.
There's always the primary source of pain, and then there's this secondary array of sources of pain. A friend of mine described how she accidentally cut a couple of her fingers, and she described that in her first reaction, and in the first maybe 45 or 60 seconds, she was saying things to herself she would never say to anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's total. There's the primary pain, and then there's that pain, thoughts, emotions, completely normal, completely human. I can fully relate, still do.
Yeah.
And but it's where we go from there. There's the initial, let's call it trigger, and then there's the response. And it's it's only human. Sometimes I'll say this: and I'll use those three steps of resilience. The that tune in phase. Sometimes that's the only place to stay for however long it needs.
Yeah.
That when you're ready for whatever reasons, and it's up to each of us to go to the plan step. Think about what new thought, emotion, or action, or a combination of all three am I going to choose in this moment, and then be your best, follow through, experience it, and see if it works, see if it doesn't. But sometimes that tune in step is right where we belong for any amount of time. Someone asked me, how do I, when I'm in constant pain, how do I how do I get my mind off of it? Last night for about an hour and a half, around 3 to 4:30 a.m., I was in constant pain. It woke me up, and it was a tough hour and a half. So I just stayed in that tune in. Self-care was what I brought to that time. I went ahead and thought about what I'm thinking and feeling, and eventually I was able to get back to sleep, even while I was still in pain. But these 3 steps are never to be rushed. Sometimes I will say, I'll rip through them. I was driving to see a client and had a major blast of pain. I'm 5 minutes away from meeting with this client, and I immediately tuned in and thought, I know what I need in this moment, and I chose it, and I thought through it. I thought, this is a gift. This pain and all the 13 scars is a gift. It helped me pivot, and for that moment, turn it around. I hold stress in my throat and my shoulders and my back, and I went from completely seizing up from the pain to ripping through those steps. And when I said this is a gift, because I'm thankful for the scars, I say this a lot, because without them, I wouldn't know the man I am. I wouldn't know the heart I have. It worked in that moment. And that was some time ago, but last night, I just needed to tune in, acknowledge, and sit with and lie there with with a primary pain and the secondary array of pain, the thoughts I was having, the emotions, how I felt about it all.
Makes sense. That makes sense. Wow, man. We can talk forever. I know we've already been going over an hour or so, so we're going to start to wrap this one up. Most of our comments came in from Instagram. Thank you guys again for tuning in. We do have a few people that's been tuning in on all the other channels and things like that. They've just been watching. Thank you guys for that, for just watching and just supporting the channel and everything else. So now, Rick, as we begin to wrap this up, I want to ask you a couple more questions. And the first, one of the questions is, how can people find you?
Thank you. The best way to go, and heaven help me if I forget it, it's rickcram.com, RICKCRAM.com. 2 things you'll find right on the homepage. There's the free downloadable PDF that's a fillable PDF, or you can use it on your devices or make multiple hard copies of it. And it gives you prompts to practice going through those 3 steps. And I want to say this, I think it's worth noting, there's no perfection in grieving. There's no perfection in pain management. There's no perfection in resilience. But in the practicing of it, going through those steps, going through or addressing each of those, I like your use of the term, Tony, pillars about grieving, that there is the growth that comes from it, and that we find, and what I like to remind everyone is that you'll find that while there's no perfection in it, you'll find your best is greater than the pain. Also on the homepage, so that worksheet is free. Have right at it. And you can contact me there. You'll see starting the week of July 10th is a new series. It's the Summer of Resilience, just 10 weeks to go through looking at the different ways of using the 3 steps of resilience and how they integrate with something called the 8 domains of thriving. Each domain is like a well of enhancing your strength, a well of energy, of wisdom, and that ends up setting the stage for ongoing transformation over time through life. So I look forward to, I love questions. Ask me anything you want. I'll reply, or maybe even do a video about it. Because those questions, that curiosity of yours, those needs you've got deserve answers. And sometimes the answer is, well, let's have a conversation about it.
Exactly.
Or here's something to think about. Sometimes the answer is, well, how can I help you find the answer within you?
I think we should. I think we should do that. You know what I'm saying? Do a video about it and then explain it to people a lot more. I think that would be really, really cool. So now my second question would be, if Rick had a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, wow. A superpower. Oh my goodness. Tony, if I had a superpower, I would take away hungry children. I would take away the need that children have to be fed. I would take away hunger. I would take away the issues that we have. Um, I would take away that there was ever any need for homelessness. I would take away illnesses and pain. Um, those are my first thoughts.
Yeah, I like that. Now, one last thing. If you could leave the audience with something, what would you leave them with?
Sometimes it's said that the further we are away from our source of hope, the less hope we experience. You talked about what we focus on is what we experience. And there's a tremendous source of hope within you. There are strengths within you. You might feel exhausted, and I get it, but you have strengths to go through what you're going through and to never give up hope on yourself. You are one of your greatest sources for hope.
Uh, wow, man, that's deep. I'm over here like, man, all right, I love that. I love that. For everyone else out there, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of the Bitch Let's Talk About It podcast. Again, thank you guys for always tuning in, always supporting the channel. Thank you for your questions and comments, putting it in the comment section and things like that. Thank you for always rocking with me as well. You know, I know it's Juneteenth. I know there's a lot of people out there celebrating. So for you guys to take that time to come and spend it with me means a lot. And Rick, I want to say thank you for joining us today. And before I say anything, I'm saying, no, it's not that simple. Stop. Stop it. You know what I'm saying? And you know it takes work. Stop it, all of that. And with that being said, guys, you guys already know we do one every day. We got one coming up tomorrow. We're going to be doing it. Also, July 5th, we got the July 5th magazine coming out. We got some great things coming in. So great people. So check it out. It's the articles. Check out the new podcast that's going to be added to it. So most importantly, check out the ads that are in there. We got some great people out there doing some great things. We make it easy for you to find that support. All right. With that being said, guys, this is Tony Lynch. This is going to be the end of this podcast. Have a great, amazing day. I love you. And as always, thank you for your support.
Thank you, Tony.
All right. Thank you. Peace.